Hey guys, welcome to another video from Historic Militaria. Today we're going to be looking at a very specific Mauser Broomhandle contract that happened right after World War I, and that's the what's so-called French Gendarme. Now supposedly these were guns that were made for use by the French sort of paramilitary gendarme police, and while no documentation exists that that's exactly what these were used for, that's sort of been the accepted premise by collectors and pretty much everyone else for at least since the 1960s and possibly before that. These are guns that are actually in a very tight serial number range from about 432,000 to about 434,000. And they've got some very specific characteristics that we'll look at. As you can see, they are a Bolo-sized gun. They've got the short barrel, and all three of these are the same, so there's no real difference between the three of them. This is just a standard one we'll look at. They've got the, like I said, the Bolo length barrel with the Bolo crown right here. They will not be marked on the side. They're certainly not Imperial German guns. This is post-World War I, probably about 1921, 22. The guns are usually found in high condition, so it's not unusual to find these in 85% plus condition. They've got nice fire blue on them. You've gone back to sort of your commercial type bluing. It's a very shiny blue. It's a very deep blue. You don't have a lot of machine marks on these guns. The grips are going to be a black or very dark brown, sort of a hard rubber with the Mauser emblem on them. And there are reports of some with wood grips, although those are pretty unusual. And you're going to have the full-size grip frame. So these are full-size grips on the Bolo-sized upper. Now we've seen that on some cone hammer Bolos that were a full-size lower with a Bolo-sized barrel. So that's not novel for Mauser to have done. Otherwise, the gun is very much the same. Your small ring hammer, everything else is the same. They do use only a 500 meter tangent sight instead of the 1,000 meter. And this is the same sight that was found on the Red 9s. So it's not unusual that Mauser would sort of continue this with these smaller guns. You got your standard short extractor and everything else being the same as well. There are no other markings on these that certainly mark them as French Gendarme or anything like that. Most all of them will have a Germany stamp right here, or maybe sometimes a Made in Germany stamp. Those were guns that were just sold outside of Germany. So as far as I would even say, these could have just been commercial guns that went to France rather than made just for the French military. Can't really say. Again, there's not a lot of documentation or anything on them. They do fall, as I said, in a pretty tight serial number range of 432 to about 434,000. As you can see, this one is right there in the middle of that. So is this guy. You've got the Germany mark on this one as well. And you've got a serial number that again falls right there in that same range. And again, looking at this guy, exactly the same. Your really nice typical commercial grade fire blue and your tangent sight out to 500 meters, and of course all your parts are going to match. Your serial numbers are in typical fashion going to be repeated as usual with the NS safety. All these are going to be NS safety marked guns because they were using the new safety and they continued using it after World War I. Again, like I said, these are often found in pretty high condition. If they were used by a police or military force, they really didn't see much service. And a lot of them seem to have been sold on the civilian market. A lot of them ended up in America, it seems like. They are a fairly common gun for such a small number being made. A large number seem to have survived, so they don't seem to have seen a lot of service or been used in World War II or anything like that. So where they kind of really went to stay in such nice shape, I'm not really sure. But they are one of the more accessible and sort of more interesting of the immediate post-war contracts. And these are just some examples that you'll see of Mauser really doing some unusual things right after World War I, when they were sort of trying to cater to any market that would buy their products, because obviously any hard currency they could bring in for firearms at the time was really good for them. And just kind of hope you've enjoyed seeing some examples of the so-called French Gendarme contract. Now, these also, one last thing I will say is these will have a shoulder stock with them if they do still have it with them, and it'll be a standard type stock fitted for a Bolo. That's the only difference. So it will be a Bolo sized indent inside the shoulder stock. So other than that, these are very standard guns and just very interesting ones, but really no idea their operational usage or anything like that, or what unit of the so-called French Gendarme got them, or where they were used, or how long they were used, or anything like that. So if you have any insight into that, I would definitely love to hear it. And if you've got one, I'd love to hear about that too. So like, subscribe, comment, share your guns, and thanks for watching.